Welcome to Sexual Alchemy with Libby. I'm Libby Hudson Lydecker, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Gina Hendrix today, the billionaire celebrity matchmaker extraordinaire, author, relationship expert, coach, savior of all things relationships.
And animals.
And animals. Yeah. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you.
So good to have you
here. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your experience and what you do and how you do it.
Oh my, where do I begin? I've had my matchmaking business now over a decade. Okay. And you know, I kind of, over the years, got into this niche where I really just focus on working with a very small select group of some of the most eligible men in the world. Billionaires, multimillionaires, celebrities, and essentially then my job is to go and find the most perfect woman on earth for them. So that's the core business. And then out of that, I've had a couple of radio shows, and I just released my third book, and this one's called The Great Manhunt, Access and Attract That Guy Every Woman Wants, because it seems the majority of women kind of want that same prototype of man. So yeah, so I do that, and then some coaching for ladies, and here we are.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what drew you to matchmaking? What was the
That's a great question.
quest?
You know, I was like a lot of women. I was constantly reading relationship books and looking for love, and I loved to talk about love and dating all the time. I was obsessed, and I've always been a great connector. I would connect friends with friends, and I'd set up friends over the years. And at the time I was a celebrity stylist, and I was a celebrity stylist for 10 years, and you know, production is like busy and slow. And so during the slow times, I had gotten to a point where I just discovered online dating and wanted to start my own online dating site. Okay. So I tried off and on for 7 years while I was styling, while it was slow, but I had no idea how to like run a big tech company, or you know, it was just, I just got overwhelmed. So finally one day, a friend who had seen me, you know, want to pursue this and passionate about it, he said, "Gina, I think you'd be great at being like a personal matchmaker. You know, you're personable, you'll just go into the real world and do it." And I was like, well, it's a little different than I envisioned, but okay. And I looked into it, and I just literally dove in and never looked back.
Amazing.
And that was in 2008.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so
you're like, damn, why did I ask that long question?
No, that was fantastic. That was really interesting. And so you are hired by these men,
yes,
these eligible bachelors, who are looking for wife material. They're looking for a long-term relationship.
Absolutely.
This is not just a casual dating.
No. I won't work with anyone who, if I know at least, and I've gotten better about, you know, reading through the lines.
Sure.
But yeah, I really only want to work with those men who are looking for a substantial, long-term committed relationship, because the women that I'm finding, that's what they're looking for as well. So they don't want to go out with a guy that's just playing around.
Yeah. And what I loved in our conversations is that I really sensed about you is that you hold integrity high.
And it is not easy in this business, let me just tell you.
I would imagine that
it's not easy in LA, I think, in general. I think, you know, I talk a lot about, I think every day, and I think particularly Los Angeles, you can take the high road or the low road, depending on your goals. For sure. And there's a lot of temptation to cut corners and essentially sell your soul and compromise your integrity. And I mean, I don't know why I'm not that person, but I am not, thank God.
You choose not to be.
I choose not to be, you're right. And I've lived in LA for a very long time, and I just, I like being the person that people can count on to be real and authentic. Right. It's just who I am.
Right.
So
yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Sexual Alchemy, in this podcast that we do, it's really about healing, not only starting with healing the sacral space, so the sacral chakra, sexual energy, and ultimately uplifting and transmuting it. Alchemy, right, is that transmutation energy.
Yes.
And so I think it's so interesting in terms of what you have discovered, like what is attraction, right? What is, you know, what makes someone attractive? Could you delve into that a little bit? Like
I'm gonna have to think about this for a few months and get back to you. No, I'm just kidding. Let me think.
For a man,
it's a really great
for
question.
a woman, because that might be two different answers.
It is definitely going to be two different answers, I think. I think for men, what I've learned from this business is they are extremely visual, obviously. They're very visual, but I think beyond that, what I've also learned is that men who are substantial and are looking for a real relationship, they don't want just superficial at all. And I think, what I've noticed when I've talked to women a lot of times, or they fill out profiles for me, the women are used to meeting men who aren't digging deep with them. Like, I've had women say, oh, why would I want to talk about my career? Why would I want to tell somebody how accomplished I am? And so it's very interesting. But it's because they're not meeting men who either don't see them for the long term, or maybe the guys aren't substantial looking for a real relationship. But so I think initially for the guys, attraction is physical. And then beyond that, it's everything else. It's accomplishments and goals. And, these guys really want to be proud of their partner. And at the same time, I think that turns them on too, when they can say, hey, not only is she beautiful, but look what she's accomplished. Like that really, and then I think for women, I think the women need to feel heard and secure. I think that's really what turns women on, although women also like swagger. They like a guy to have swagger, which swagger can be a little dangerous sometimes, though. I think it's definitely going to be confidence. And I think it's also going to be a little, maybe, sense of mystery in a way. Maybe they can't quite figure him out, which I don't know that always translates to being the best partner, really.
The aloofness.
Exactly.
Tends to grow old.
Exactly. Yeah. So, there you go.
Interesting. Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a long, it's a complex,
it's so complex.
Varied question.
Yes.
But yeah, so in terms of what happens when you get two people together, how do you go through the process?
So,
how do you make the match? And what do you, I'll ask the next thing
then. Okay. Yeah. So, in matching women with my guys, when a man becomes a client, I'll start with women who are already in the database, because that's a great, obviously, go-to. But as I start working with the client and getting to know them better, tastes change, things emerge that maybe they didn't mention in the beginning, or maybe they just changed gears on me for whatever reason. And so as I work with a man, I'm constantly, me, along with my team, we're constantly online looking for the woman who, at first sight, obviously, fits the bill of the prototype of the physical type of what he's looking for. But from there, like, usually it's my scouts doing this, and then they will say, what do you think about her? What do you think? And they're showing me, a lot of times it could be LinkedIn, but I do prefer Instagram, because the truth of the matter is, everybody's on Instagram. Really, everybody. Unless you're living under a rock, and almost nobody's living under a rock anymore. They're really not. Everyone's on Instagram.
We've all been in our houses.
Yes. And, and I had a, this is funny though, I had a guy,
any anecdotes you want to share?
I had a guy tell me not long ago, Gina, I want you to find me a girl who's super beautiful, and we're talking super beautiful, the business I'm in, but who doesn't know it. And I said, that's really hard these days, especially with Instagram. Even if she's like, unless she's been held captive like in a cave somewhere or an underground bunker, pretty much any girl, if she's pretty, she's pretty these days, which is also, it was also a little bit of a weird request. But sometimes I hear things I wish I couldn't hear, but it's part of the business. So
well, but and then the question that begs there is he wanting her to feel insecure?
Good point. Right. Exactly. I actually have turned down a client who one of his requirements was that she be needy and insecure. Those were two of his requirements, and he hired me. He came recommended through somebody, because most everybody comes recommended that I work for, or that I work with. But I find that even when people recommend people, they see one aspect of that person. Whereas when somebody works with me, then they're showing other aspects of their personality. They're telling me things they never tell their friends or whatever. I mean, I'm sure he's not going around telling friends this, especially women friends he knows. And so anyway, he hired me. We were 3 days into working together, and this is when all this stuff started being revealed. And I went to the bank and I said, you have to figure out how to wire his money back. And they didn't know how to wire it back to someone. Wow, yeah. I said, I'm not leaving here until you figure it out, because I'm not working with this guy because he's so weird.
See, I mean, integrity.
Hi, are you damaged? Because then you're going to be the woman for my guy. Like, I'm not in that business, you know? So it was, he's still single and
But what an amazing admission that he wouldn't edit that. You know, I mean, that says a lot too, that he doesn't realize that that's kind of messed up.
I know. I actually ended up referring him to a therapist. Yeah. So, but I know he's still single, because I actually.
Okay, ladies.
Yes. Hey, if you want to meet him and you're tall and blonde and insecure and needy, I got the guy for you. Hey, there is a lid for every pot, but you know. So then we go and, you know, they'll say, what do you think about her? What do you think about her, as possible candidates for the client, because perhaps she's a physical match for what he's looking for. And then from there, I really spend a lot of time looking through to see as much, you know, this is the good thing about Instagram, because although I do believe people are way more than they show on Instagram, some are, some aren't. But it is a good window into somebody's life and lifestyle. So, you know, I look for those who have more depth, obviously, and then from there I connect with them, and then that's when the real pre-qualification starts, in terms of me seeing if they are in fact going to be the right match for the client.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
So what you and I spoke about how a trait that is often kind of overlooked, or maybe not as emphasized as valuable in women, is something that men are looking for, and we were kind of looking for the correct words for it, but the term we came up with was soft or vulnerable.
Yes.
And
feminine.
So not going into that like insecure category, but being in the more receptive energy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's something that I think in some ways is a little politically incorrect, right? That women are expected to be strong, and we're expected to, a strong woman isn't necessarily those traits of femininity. And so that was something that really piqued my interest when we spoke about it, because I thought, like, well, what is that, right? So what is that quality that makes a woman attractive and receptive, right? Because it is a certain degree of receptivity, right? That allows a man to come into his full masculine energy and feel.
I told you that I could tell, so part of the process with the matchmaking, to come full circle and with us, is, when somebody fills out a profile in the database. So that's another hoop that I'm looking to pre-qualify. And then I always meet people in person. And so you and I were having lunch recently, and we were talking about how I felt like just your energy. I can feel people's energy. And it's very funny, because I've interviewed a few ladies, even just talking to them over the phone, and where they're like, I can just feel their energy is really strong, and it's really like this. And so I will try to like give them a little hint, like work it into the conversation, like, oh, well, my guy's like, a woman who's really like in their feminine and soft and vulnerable, and then this one particular woman says, oh yeah, I've really worked on myself. I've done all the work, Gina. I'm ready. Oh my God! No, you haven't. And so a lot of people are just so unaware.
Sure.
And so it starts with a sense of awareness to even know that there is a problem. But then you showed up and you were like, whoa, like so sexy and feminine. I think any man would absolutely agree with that. And I think a lot of women could feel that as well. I wonder if that feels threatening to other women. Do you ever feel that it feels threatening to other women?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. Sure. I mean, I think attractive women or women who get attention for that definitely have that obstacle to overcome. That there is a putting off initially sometimes.
But I don't think it has anything to do with looks as much as it's literally just your energy that I could see being maybe intimidating to some women simply because that energy is, to your point of opening this discussion, is very hard to figure out how do you get there. You know what I mean?
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, we put. Hey, Jacques.
We can edit that out.
What are you doing? Come here.
Ball.
Come here. Is your ball under there?
Yeah.
Do you want to sit here with me? Okay. Because that's something that you can't really just read a book and then all of a sudden bring your feminine energy. In fact, I don't even know how one gets there. I don't.
That's beautiful to hear. Thank you. And that is something that I really feel like is one of my life purposes, is to help women really authentically claim, not replicate, not, in any way that feels contrived, their innate sense of that feminine beauty, right? That goddess energy, that, whatever it is that feels powerful, but in a feminine way. Like, too often
we mistake
it. This sounds anti-feminist, which I'm not at all, but that we are modeling a masculine version of power.
For sure.
And
I would agree with that.
Which is why the dynamic, and this is really what I want to get into with you, the dynamic of the masculine and the feminine polarity has become really combative and really off kilter in a lot of ways.
I agree.
If women could really be in their femininity, the receptivity, which is hugely powerful, by the way, it is the ultimate power.
I agree.
Then we could allow men to be more truly divinely masculine and feel safe being that strong, embodiment in whatever way.
I agree. And we're in such an unusual time right now.
Oh, yeah.
With not only there's the Me Too movement, which is valid and makes men fearful, and a lot of men probably should be, but not all of them. And certainly, I think then the other side of it is, women think, we're going to take our power back. But again, to your point, it is more in a masculine way. And I can't tell you how many women show up, and I think it happens more as we get older. I think as we get older, men become more feminine and women become more masculine. That's what I've sort of noticed.
Yeah.
And so, I think too that I've noticed women not being very masculine when they're in their 20s.
Right.
And not even that much in their 30s, but as they get toward the end of the 30s, and then the 40s, and then the 50s, it becomes more masculine. A little harder, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so
that's interesting.
If a woman shows up, and, a lot of times there are women out there who want to hire a matchmaker. And I don't work with women.
We don't.
No, not as matchmaking clients, because it's a harder dynamic. I was trying to explain this yesterday. I was part of this documentary for the UK, and they were interviewing me, and we were talking about it, and I was trying to explain, because it's hard to explain to women why I don't work with women. It's so hard to explain. It's not hard to explain. It's
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable to explain.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the reason is more so because, there's a number of reasons, but one reason is that a woman, usually, who's hiring a matchmaker is in a very masculine place. It seems to be that way. And other matchmakers will tell you this too. I've had the conversation with them many times.
Yeah.
They take usually female clients because they can, and knowing that it's going to be extremely difficult, because usually women want their equal, and the men don't want an equal in that way.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
you mean, and by equal, you mean career-wise, or in terms of what they've produced or done in the world?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily at all. Because I think my guys definitely want someone who's accomplished and who has accomplished a lot, but who still knows how to balance the feminine part and not is just the, balls in the boardroom. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah, of course.
And I think it's very hard as a woman to know how to balance.
Yeah.
It's incredibly hard. I mean, I don't think I balance it anymore. I've gone full balls to the walls. I am a businesswoman and I like it. But I mean, I do remember back when I was, more sexy and playful. I mean, I've always been kind of a
sexy
spitfire.
and playful, Gina.
Yeah, but I'm also very business. And we do slip into that sometimes. So it's a really hard balance for women to maintain. And I have a woman that came to me recently, and seems fantastic. I haven't really gotten to know her that well, but I looked over her profile because I'm going to be giving her a profile makeover.
Okay.
And I can tell even just from reading her profile and seeing her pictures, I know what the issue is. The issue is that she wants a man who's her equal, and she's too much. It's too much.
Wow.
Yeah, she's not a Libby.
Okay.
and that has nothing to do with looks. I'm just saying energetically.
Energetically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does beg a lot of sociological questions in terms of like, what are our gender expectations, and is it okay to have that, and what's better and what's worse, and how has it shifted over the years? I mean, that would be an interesting question. Like in a decade from now, what might change? You know,
Very true.
In terms of you're dealing with a different generation of people.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
So if you were going to work with a woman who is great in every way, but she is maybe steamrolling over men, and she wants her equal, and she's kind of unaware, maybe she thinks she's done the work, because the majority of women, you know, it's interesting. I find that those women, or people, not even women, people, honestly, it's equal like this. That the people who show up and they think they don't need to do any work on themselves, need the most work on themselves.
Well, that's
and the
true
ones
with
who
anything,
show up
right?
and think that they need to work on themselves, they're usually pretty good.
Well, but that's
find
by
that
virtue that, I love that you said that, because that is very true with so many things, right?
Yeah.
When you think you've got it all right,
Right.
go back to start.
Yeah, there you go.
Get
Right.
down the ladder back to.
So then, where would you start with? You know, because I do think of this a lot when I'm talking to women, and because I can coach women on a lot of things. I can coach women on bringing their A game. I have a course for women where I teach them to bring their A game, and I do talk about the balance of how to bring your A game without it being, you know, competing with men or being masculine. But to dive in further to this like feminine energy from inside, which, you know, I'm going to term a little more hippy dippy stuff that's out of my realm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit more, I don't know, just I'm more like, here's the hard facts. I'm going to make over your profile.
Yeah.
I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to teach you how to, like, you know, organize your house and always make sure your look's together and those kind of things. But that internal deep, that is so deep to be able to kind of reset your persona and your energy, for goodness sakes. It's called energy for a reason. Energy is not tangible. So then where do you begin to help somebody with that?
Right. Yeah, that's deeper work for sure. I mean, you can polish it up, right? But
right. I can polish the apple, but I can't get into that core.
No.
Can you?
I mean, I think by virtue of what she's nodding, my student. She was my student.
Oh, I see.
But that's I mean, that deeper inner work is really, I guess, what I seek to do and what I hope to do, and that is, you know, it takes commitment, and it takes, first of all, the recognition that you want to go into that space within yourself,
right,
and then remove a lot of the subconscious programming that's driving you that a lot of us aren't even aware of, right? So we think, oh, I have these beliefs, I have these values, but then if you really start to disentangle where did those beliefs and values come from, you start to realize, wow, a lot of that wasn't necessarily of my own origin, and therefore when I'm getting into a deeper core issue, you're right, then you have to do some deeper soul work, right? And that's ultimately what meditation and yoga and what I teach is.
Right,
and
fair enough.
That's a long
process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say.
I would think it would be something that somebody sort of has to work on and be aware of almost constantly, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to be in
because we're always choosing between fear and love, right? Like the most basic level. Every choice.
In every aspect, sure.
In
interaction with people, everything.
And
absolutely.
so if you think about that, if you're going into a setup or date, like in this scenario, and you're coming from a space of insecurity, like, and the want is, right? The intention is, I just want to be liked. I just want to be liked. Then that's the vibration of insecurity that you're ultimately transmitting, rather than, I want to have this experience with this person and see if we get along, right? Because you explained, I saw you on your Instagram feed talking about someone saying
to me
this question, which was, what do I talk about on a date?
Yeah.
And that does strike me as kind of funny, because why would you plan it?
Oh,
why would you?
Even funnier, she was...
I mean, just see what comes
She
out.
wanted us to drop everything and get on a call with her. She kept writing. She sent us several emails saying, can you just get on a call with me, question mark, question mark? And Rosie, my assistant, and I were just like, well, why can't she just tell us what she wants in an email? I said, Rosie, call her back, because Rosie only had limited time. I said, you only have limited time, so call her back, because you only have a couple minutes. She's not going to take long.
Right.
And it was because she wanted me to get on a call with her.
Oh.
I don't know her.
Okay.
She's not a client. She's not a coaching client. She wanted me, because she says she loves my advice and everything. Well, thank you very much. To give her advice on what to talk about on this date, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Yeah. So Rosie gave her a link to get the book and take my coaching course if she wants, but there's nothing that's going to happen immediately, for goodness sake. So, but these things tell me what people's problems are right away. Yeah. So, but she didn't know what to talk about. I mean, when I don't date much, I'll be honest with you, because I just don't want to. No.
I hear enough of the disasters.
It's kind of true, actually. But I do love my business. I love helping people, and I've got a ton of animals. And so anyway, whatever. But I, on those rare occasions where I do go out, and this is what I try to tell people, I go just to have a good time, a good experience with someone. I'll tell you, this is a funny story.
Yes, please.
Maybe you'll like this.
I'm so glad you're coming. Stories. Thank you.
And don't let me forget, there's a really good story I've been trying to circle back to about a girl who's super mousy, and just don't let me forget. I'm going to leave it with mousy, and then we'll circle back. Yes. So anyway, so during the pandemic, it's hardcore lockdown, and then there was that window of time here in LA where they opened up the restaurants before closing them down again. And so in that tiny window of time, just like one day, I literally, they had just opened. And I connected with this guy on Bumble. Now the thing is, I didn't even connect with him on Bumble for me. I actually was scoping out some guys for a couple of coaching girls that I was working with. But I knew this particular girl, she wanted to have kids, and there were pre-qualifiers that I had to see. And sometimes guys don't have it on the profile, so you have to ask. So anyway, he and I started talking, and he was younger. So for me, I'm not even interested in younger guys anyway, and because usually they want kids, and then obviously I'm not having them, and so anyway, so he and I were chatting. Mostly we ended up talking about old trucks, because I have an old vintage truck, and he has old vintage trucks. So we were just messaging harmlessly back and forth. There was nothing sexual. There was no sexual talk, and it was clear that I said, do you want to have kids? He said, yes. I said, okay, well, you wouldn't be for, the girl I was thinking of, and obviously not for me, whatever. And then he ignored it and was routing about old trucks, okay? So then finally he says, hey, do you want to grab lunch? Meaning like now. And I was like, oh, well, I can't, but I could meet you for dinner, because I thought, well, why not? You know what I mean? Talk to somebody, harmless enough. Okay, long story short, we meet at this Mexican restaurant in Venice, and we're sitting there. And he says, well, you know why we're here, right? And I was like,
do I?
No, I don't, no. And he was like, come on, you know why we're here. Like that. And I was like, no. He goes, you know where this is headed, like that. And so I decided to just put the total kibosh on him. And I said, no, because I haven't had sex in 6 years. Oh, wow. So it ain't going to happen, buddy.
You want to get
face
one.
Dropped to the floor. We had ordered the food, but the food hadn't gotten there yet. He was like this. He could not get out of there fast enough. And then the waiter puts down the food while he's still trying to process everything. He goes, well, then I don't understand. Now he gets mad. The food's there. He gets mad at me. Well, I don't understand. Then why did you even come meet me? And I said, because you asked. I said, we hadn't even talked about anything flirty. Like, I was just here to meet somebody because I enjoyed talking to you. I didn't show up with an agenda. And he could not. I said, listen, if you want to get the bill, that's fine. I'll split it with you. He goes, yeah, I guess so. And then the bill still wouldn't come quick enough for him. So I just said, listen, why don't you go? I'll just get it. And he said, oh, okay. And he just, and he literally unmatched with me. Probably as soon as he got in his car, which is fine, and I picked up the bill and had 2 meals. And but that's the thing. People show up with all this buildup in mind, these agendas, and you should just be.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point, and that's such an important lesson in terms of also sexual relations, right? That like if it's transactional, then it really is just masturbating up against someone else. Right. So if it's not a human connection, and it's not because I'm actually enjoying your company and there is a energetic exchange happening between us, then it's very base and it's very banal.
For sure.
Right?
Yes.
And so unfortunately that has become a lot of these dating sites, right? Like a lot of these things are just hook up. What can I get out of you? I don't really know you. I don't really care to know you. And there is that cheapness of the human interaction. And then it becomes, these quick sexual, almost like you felt in that situation, like it was some like obligation that he somehow had an expectation of, because you made a human connection, that sex was the next obvious.
Even though there was no romantic talk ever at any point. We literally went from old trucks to tacos.
Old trucks to
no tacos, but
wow.
But yeah, so there was no segue. So therefore, there was zero context that this would be a romantic get together. You know what I mean?
Right.
He asked, I said yes. Well, So anyway, to your point, I think if you show up, and you're assuming things, that's already your first mistake.
Sure.
You're always going to be disappointed in some way.
Yeah, exactly. But also, what I like about what you do too is it's kind of bringing back the art of courtship. That there is a process, there is a ritual in mating, as there should be, a process of getting to know one another and having enjoyment with one another that feels authentic. And yes, you want to match people who have common interests and common certainly a physical attraction, and whatever,
blah, blah, blah,
all those things that
the
create,
long list.
That would eliminate some obvious problems.
Absolutely right.
But at the end of the day, you can never predict chemistry.
No, that
chemistry
is the intangible.
je ne sais quoi that
I agree.
just can't quite.
Yes, I agree.
Ever predict. Right?
I agree. So I do want to tell you this one story.
Yes, please.
So this is years ago. Years ago, there was this guy. I forget how I actually knew them, but there was this guy. And he had been married to a TV actress who she was on a very popular show. She was just adorable. Kind of looked like Kelly Ripa. Anyway, they were getting divorced. He meets this girl. And this girl looks like...
He meets her how?
Well, I don't know how they met.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And he actually ended up leaving his wife, this beautiful TV actress, for this particular girl. Okay? This girl, though, looked like a 12-year-old boy. I mean, you would never look at her twice. No makeup. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
When you were around her, she looked right into your eyes. She made you feel like you were the only person in the room. And it was a feminine energy that she had that would just draw the men in like flies. I stood there. I couldn't believe it. And so there is something to say. So it's not as much about the exterior as it is about the energy.
Sure.
Really, it's true.
Well, and also that's a beautiful point, is that at the end of the day, all of us just want to be seen.
Yes,
right?
that's
really
so true.
Seen, and so it sounds like the way you describe her is that she was able to hold a certain space or be a container that allowed that man to feel like
seen and heard.
I'm understood.
Yes,
I'm respected.
understood. You're right.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but there's a saying that at the end of the day, the most fundamental need for women, for men, is to be respected, and the most fundamental need for women is to be understood.
Absolutely.
And I wonder if there's much of a difference between the two, because and can you reflect on that a little bit?
Thanks, Libby.
Yeah, I know.
Wow, you really hit the ball to me hard there. No, I think that you're right. I think what you're getting at ultimately is a sense of appreciation and respect, and that's what we all want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But it takes different forms.
It does take different forms. Absolutely.
Respect is a certain degree of honoring. Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like my guys, and I remember this one client, and he ended up marrying her. I set him up with this one particular woman that I found, and just a random event, and then married a beautiful daughter now. Yeah, it's really awesome. But I remember in the first couple of women I was setting him up with, he would say to me, Gina, they're just not, he didn't use the word feminine. He'd say they're just not, they don't feel vulnerable. They'd show up, they'd be a little hard. They wouldn't be playful, light, and fun. And I think that's kind of the combo of what the men are really truly looking for. They're looking for somebody, it's interesting, they're looking for somebody obviously beautiful and attractive that, there's that, and smart and great, but the one characteristic that I think is so important that I think you help women with, and I know my guys are always looking for, is that fun, light, easygoing playfulness. And I mean, I'm not talking about like be the jokester, because that's not what we're talking about.
It's just someone who's happy
and relaxed.
Right. Yeah.
And so he used to say that, and then sure enough, found him this lady, and I got married and had a baby.
Well
so that
done.
was
well done, you.
And I think then the men really want a woman who also has follow through, dependable, and I think the women definitely want a man who's going to make them feel secure, like he's their man and he can be counted on.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I see from the sidelines.
Yeah, that's interesting. Were there any situations or anything that you found that has totally surprised you? Anything that's just shocked you that you did not imagine?
Let me think about that. Well, I did make a match once where I didn't think they were going to be I didn't even set them up thinking it was going to be the right match, because he was he would go between Paris, Dubai, and Morocco at the time. He hired me, although he had a home in Malibu as well. And at the time, I didn't really have any women to set him up with in Paris, where he was at the time. Okay. And I said, well, we're going to be starting a new search and finding women in Paris, because on the internet, you can find them anywhere. That's another great thing about Instagram and the internet. But I said, I do know this one girl in Paris. I've known her for years. Mm-hmm. She is a model. She's beautiful, but she's like looks-wise, complete opposite of everything he had described. Everything. And he said, oh, well, I'll meet her. And so I said to her, hey, he's a new client. I'd love for you to just go and meet him and tell me what you think of him. I didn't really kind of tell her. I didn't frame it like it was really a date, you know what I mean? And it was lunch anyway. And so they went, and they completely hit it off. Cool. And then they began this whirlwind romance that it lasted over a year. Ultimately, it ended. But you know what actually set her apart from most of the women is that she could not be bought. Now, this is interesting when I say this, because when I say this, I mean these guys show up and they say they don't want a woman who, wants gold digger, right? Sure. Yes, gold digger. Yet, a lot of times these guys are so stuck in these habits, the patterns they have, which is lavishing women with gifts. Right. I liken it to, I tell them, it's like you show up and you say to me, I don't want a woman who is on crack. But then you are the crack salesman and shoving crack in her face. So at what point is she going to then take the crack and
well, all right.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, so that was kind of the dynamic that happened. And he wanted to give her gifts in the beginning, and she'd never accepted gifts. She's just never even probably, just not her thing. Right. And she would turn him down. And his mind was blown. And it set her apart from everyone. Right. Well, and ultimately, the story kind of came full circle, and she became the crack addict that he didn't want to date. That's not literally, but you know what I mean? Like, he lavished the gifts, then she took him, and then it became this whole thing, and he was right back to square one again.
Well, and then you wonder subconsciously, are they testing? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, that's what I tell the women too. I think whether these guys are conscious of it or not, they are absolutely testing. Right. They're absolutely testing. And I mean, I'm someone who couldn't be bought. But I think
I would like to think myself as well.
Yes,
thank you. Yes,
I'd like to think that. Yes, but it's like, I know one particular woman who's beautiful. I think she's in her feminine. I don't know how much. But she's got it going on. She's definitely bringing her A game. But then she would go out with a guy, and even if they're just like early stages, 1 or 2 dates, like she accepts like Louboutin shoes, and I wouldn't do that. No. Do you know what I mean?
No. And because what that does is then obligates you to something else, and it changes the dynamic from an even playing field to now I kind of owe you something.
Yeah, and I think too, in the back of the guy's mind, they kind of say, "Oh, okay, now I know who she is. I know that I recognize her as being the other women that I've dated who take gifts, and you know what I mean." And so I think if you really want to set yourself apart, you have to set yourself apart.
Yeah. There you go. Right. I love that.
Be different. Don't be bought.
Don't be bought. Yeah. But and that goes both ways, right? Like really being
I agree.
As much as
it's always going to go both ways. Yes. Yeah. If you don't want a gold digger, why lead with money? Well, if you're not looking for a gold digger as a man, if you're not looking for a gold digger, then why lead with your money?
Right.
Lead with your qualities. I've had women tell me, Gina, if I don't want a guy to just throw money at my problem, if I tell him I'm freaking out about my move and I don't know what I'm going to do about boxing everything up and I feel overwhelmed, I don't want him to just say, oh, I'll send, movers to the house. It means more if he says, I'll show up and help you pack those boxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
that's lovely.
Is it?
It is. Well, I mean, in theory.
We want to see things beyond money. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we want to see people show up to be there for us.
And beyond the superficial too.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
if you're saying you want a woman of quality, but you want a 25-year-old model, who doesn't age, guess what, guys? She's
yeah. Well, if somebody says this to me, then before they've become a client, even if they've become a client, I'm still going to try to steer them back in the right direction. But if somebody says that to me before they've become a client, and it's just,
it's a red flag.
It's a red flag for me. I'm testing these guys before I ever work with them to see if I even want to work with them.
Yeah, and similarly, you're interviewing the women and
I'm testing the women
similar scrutiny,
similar
right?
way, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a lot going on. People
I think
don't know.
ultimately what you do is a very beautiful thing, and
Thank you.
bringing good people together, hopefully to have good quality relationships.
Absolutely, I've connected so many people for marriage and babies and wonderful long-term great relationships. So I mean, it's always fun to tell the stories that didn't go.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't go right, but there's tons that have gone right, and but you've got to have two people who are both showing up ready for a relationship.
Oh yeah.
And willing to make space and time, and and then from there it's like chemistry and everything else.
Yeah. In the meantime, it's really important that you're helping them with the obvious things too, to kind of eliminate those initial blunders. So
yes.
Let's talk about a little bit. Where can anyone who has questions about you or would like to know more
the
find
plugging
you?
of
Yes, please.
my stuff, please.
Plug
So
away.
you can go to my main website, which is GinaHendrix.com.
GinaHendrix.com.
Learn all about me.
HENDRIX.com.
Yes, HENDRIX, and then you can also go to thegreatmanhunt.com.
Okay.
And on that page, you'll see my books. My first book is called Stop Being a Bitch and Get a Boyfriend. That's on Amazon. It's a fun book, though. It was a fun book. And then I wrote a book early on during the pandemic called The Badass Pivot, and it was really more about how to hit the reset and working from home and all of that. And now this one, The Great Manhunt. So they can go to thegreatmanhunt.com, and they can also see the coaching programs I offer. I also have a new YouTube channel called Dating App Do-Over. So I give people free dating app profiles. They just have to write to me, Team Gina at GinaHendrix.com. I look at their dating app profile. If I feel like I can help them and they want to be on the YouTube show, come on, let's do it.
That's great.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Gina, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. And
it's been fun.
It's been so much fun.
I can sit here all day.
Yes, and you offer great advice with a warm heart.
Thank you. I do try. I am very sincere in my motives here.
Yeah, I feel that.
And you are as well.
Thank you. It's so nice to connect.
Yeah, thanks, Libby.
Take care.
All right. See ya.